What if a church planned a live crucifixion for Easter Sunday? No, wait. Let's make a faith-based film with singing zombies. Today we talk with filmmaker Shawn Shaw, and he's made both those films. We'll hear about the development of Church People and his collaboration on recent works like Lifeless, a musical zomedy. We'll discuss networking, crowdfunding, and connecting with people effectively on social media. But first, if you're finding this podcast helpful, take a moment to follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you think others would be interested in listening, please rate and review to make it easier for others to find. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or podchaser.com.
This is the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast, helping filmmakers who share a Christian worldview stay in touch, informed, and inspired. Quiet on set. Rolling. Today's host is Jeffrey Witt.
Hey, this is Jeff, and I'm excited to have filmmaker Shawn Shaw with us today on the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. Shawn Shaw is a multi-award-winning filmmaker and owner of Anchor Productions. He helmed the comedy film Church People, which made the Movieguide Top 10 Faith-Based Comedies list. Christopher also produced, directed, and edited the comedy cooking show Something Smells Funny, hosted by comedian Scott Wood, featuring special guests Victoria Jackson, Mark Christopher Lawrence, and more. His most recent award-winning project is a faith-based musical comedy with singing zombies. Welcome, Christopher.
Hello, sir. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Great to have you. I'm glad we were able to connect.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Well, you already know, our listeners will notice that Jacqueline's not with us today. We've had some computer problems, so we've only got one fully functioning computer, and we just moved. We only have one room set up for recording yet at this point. We'll probably share a couple interviews or take turns on some before we get back to normal.
Well, hi, Jacqueline, wherever you are. We miss you.
But I'm the lucky one today, so it's good to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Let's get started. First of all, I would like to know how you got started in filmmaking. And I guess part of that would be what area of filmmaking first attracted your interest?
My story starts all the way back in the womb. How much time do we have?
We'll fit it in.
I'm a quirky goofball or a goofy quirkball. So I actually started out wanting to act. I wanted to be a quote unquote movie star. I was always fascinated by, watching actors on the screen, and I loved watching behind the scenes stuff. It was just really neat to see how people interacted when they weren't their characters. So yeah, I would go to the movies and watch TV and daydream about being on the screen myself. And I went to college for acting. I grew up in Ohio. And so the college I attended was Otterbein in Westerville, Ohio, which is kind of a suburb of Columbus. And I was a theater performance major. And it was kind of during my college years. Actually, it was probably before my college years, but really during my college years when I had my own VHS camera. Do you remember VHSs?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
So my parents gifted me a VHS camcorder. I think it was for Christmas one year when I was a sophomore in college. And I started, tinkering with that. And I would just get these ideas for scenes. I mean, not even like a full story, just like a scene. And I would shoot it. And of course, I wanted to act, so I'd put myself in it. And I used to think, man, I wish I could be in front of the camera and behind the camera at the exact same time. But long story short, over the years, learning editing and learning filmmaking, just setting up shots and stuff like that, I found myself more and more behind the camera and enjoying it more. So I no longer have that passion to be a quote unquote movie star. I want to make films.
And so as you kind of moved away from that as a passion, what was your foray into filmmaking?
I was involved with a ministry for a period of time where I was the video guy. So I did some stuff with them. But then I would say it really catapulted big time in 2008. I did my very first 168 film project. Have you heard of the 168?
I have.
Yeah.
I have.
So,
I met the director just a few weeks ago when we were in Atlanta.
Shout out to John David Ware.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 168film.com. They are not paying me to plug them, but it's a phenomenal experience. If you can surround yourself with like-minded people and get a project going for the 168, that is a great place to start. And then, of course, networking at the festival. Film festivals in general, obviously, but if you have a film, playing at a particular festival and it's well received, that is ginormous. It's huge.
Yeah, and good to be there as well, not just to let the film play.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If you can at all possibly attend. I would love to attend more festivals than I'm able to presently. But, there's something called money and there's something called time.
I know.
I like to call it the filmmaker's F word, funding. But yeah, I would love to attend more. But if you can at all possibly get a film in a festival and attend and engage with other people, that is the way to go. So I would say it really started off when I did my first 168, because when you sign up to do a 168 film project, simply because you sign up, you're the producer. Like, you're the signing producer. Boom. You're the producer. I mean, that's it. It's the cost of entry to be a producer is you sign up for a 168 film. You're the producer.
Right.
And so the first one I did, I wore way too many hats. I was like producer, writer, director, lead actor. What else? Craft services. I did that. I mean, like, I wore like 6 or 7 different hats on that thing, and that was ridiculous. And then I skipped a year, and then in 2010, I did my second 168 film project. That was a great experience, and that was my very first time collaborating with Thor Ramsey.
Okay, so let me ask you, talking about wearing so many hats the first time, how does it typically work? Do you bring a team with you, or do they assign different team members?
That's a great question. I wondered the same thing before I got started, because I first heard about the 168. I live in Northern California, and right. I first heard about it. Somebody brought it to like a group I was in and just gave me a flyer. And I wondered the same thing. Like, so how does it work? What is this? They throw you on a team or whatever? No, you build your own team.
Okay.
And the way that typically works is, you might have an idea of who you want to collaborate with, and you tap that person, and then that person might know somebody and they tap that person, and it's a snowball from there. But yeah, you build your own team. And so the second time I did it was a much better experience because I wore 2 hats. I was producer and director.
Right.
And of course I had help. I surrounded myself with people who knew what they were doing, and I had consummate professionals surrounding me. And that is key. Surround yourself with people who know what they're doing in their respective fields.
So was 168 in California at the time?
They were based in California, yes, but people competed from all over the world, literally all over the world.
Yeah. I think they have moved. I know John has moved to Fayetteville in Georgia. Yes, I assume the festival is there now?
Yes, the festival, they moved a couple of years ago, and the festival has been there the past 2 or 3 years.
Good. So let's talk about some of your projects that people can actually see these days. I know you've got some you'd like to talk about. Where do you want to start?
Well, the big one is Church People. Churchpeoplefilm.com is the main hub for that one. There's also a Facebook page called Church People Movie. But yeah, churchpeoplefilm.com will show you a number of the places you can see it. Amazon, Apple, a lot of the big ones you can see it at. Great American Pure Flix, it's on there. But yeah, Church People was a great experience, and basically my comedy narrative feature directorial debut.
We did see it. Jacqueline and I were really excited about it. Now, if I remember correctly, this came out during COVID, right?
It did. It came out just as theaters were starting to open back up, and it was a Fathom event for 3 days. But because it was COVID era, we were in about 400 theaters nationwide. And unfortunately, we didn't get Regal cinemas because they weren't open again yet.
Right.
So we lost about 250 theaters there, which is why the team was able to negotiate the 3-day spread with Fathom, which is normally not 3 days.
And probably because it was just opening up, was attendance lower than what would have typically been the case?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it would have done a whole lot better. That being said, however, we were pleasantly surprised to find out that it was number 10 at the box office on a per screen average. So when you average it out per screen, we made the top 10 at the box office at least 2 of the 3 days it was out.
Nice. Now, I don't remember what this or what organization arranges this, but I believe you released it into homes as well, right? I think this is one of those movies that Jacqueline and I watched by paying a price to watch it privately at home. Is that correct?
So shortly after the theatrical, there was something called Premium on Demand. So it was Premium on Demand. I think you paid like $20 to watch it at home. So there was that. And then eventually it was, regular on demand and streaming.
Yeah.
And it
So
wasn't.
that's not your typical streaming platform type of thing. That's a special featured event where you advertise and people sign up for it and watch it. It's kind of an alternative to going to a theater. It's the way I saw it anyway. Is that kind of the way it's presented or not?
To be honest with you, I don't remember.
Okay. Okay.
And I wasn't really super involved with the distribution of it. That was handled by Collide Media Group.
Yeah.
Shout out to them out of Tennessee. And by the way, if you like that trailer, Collide Media Group and an editor they hired, Scott Edge, did the trailer, and they knocked it out of the park.
Cool. Good to know. Say that again. Collide
Media Group out of Tennessee.
Good. So I do remember that's the way Jacqueline and I watched it. Often, of course, well, we're in Mexico now. It's even harder. But even when we were in Canada with limited theater releases, often we didn't have the option. But we did support faith-based movies whenever we had the opportunities. And sometimes that was the premium on demand, as you mentioned, and it certainly gives more money back to the movie than just waiting and watching it on streaming.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, and we were thoroughly impressed.
Oh, thank you very much.
I just have to admit it was extremely funny, and as you know, when you laugh a lot, messages are more easily received when there's emotions involved. And that doesn't necessarily mean, deep, strong emotions. It can be levity and comedy. But it was a great movie, just plain and simple. Really great movie.
Well, thank you very much. I've heard comedian Michael Jr. say that laughter basically tears down the walls. So when there is some kind of truth or important message that is in the film or in your stand-up routine or whatever it is, then if you can break down the barriers, the walls with laughing, then it's going to help get your point across even more. And think about it. What are the most memorable commercials you can think of? They're comedies.
Yeah.
They're either comedies or they're the hard-hitting, like, anti-tobacco commercials. Like, what did I just see? Those are like the two most prominent commercials you're going to remember. So laughing is important.
So Jacqueline has had an opportunity to get to know Thor Ramsey a little at a film festival. They had some discussions.
Cool.
And Bob Saenz, of course, one of the writers, is somebody we've also gotten to know a little. What was the catalyst for that movie? Where did the idea come from? Where did it start?
So Thor, golly, I'm not sure what year this was, but it was before. I met Thor on Facebook in 2009. But we didn't meet in person and actually collaborate on a short film together until 2010. And it was during that time when he basically pitched the script to me. At the time, it was called Youth Group. And prior to that, he had gone through like 5 or 6 drafts at least, I think. And the way he tells the story is he had a pitch meeting back when he had a manager for this sort of thing. He got some kind of a pitch meeting with the faith division of Sony. So this was pre-2010, probably pre-2009, way back when. But he had a pitch meeting with the faith division of Sony, and he actually pitched them a couple of general market concepts, and he practiced the pitches, and he had it all down, but he's pitching general market to the faith division of Sony. And they're like, yeah, do you have anything faith-based? And so at that time, he had the idea and he had some of it written for something he was working on called Youth Group. And it was basically, he said, well, I have this thing. It's a slice of life, day in the life of a youth pastor kind of a thing. And they're like, we want to see that. And so he eventually got the script to them and he connected with somebody there named Josh Naylor, who I think is still with Sony, if I'm not mistaken. And Josh did something, bless his heart, he did something really cool. He actually went back and forth with Thor on like 5 or 6 drafts. And towards the last draft, like right before the last draft, he was like, what you need is a big idea. Because in that version of the script, there were a bunch of subplots and sub-characters. And so Josh told him, what you need is a big idea to bring all those characters together at the end. He's like, okay, big idea. Like, I don't know what that is, but I'll have my antennas up for a big idea. And then one day he gets a call from a pastor friend who says, you're never going to believe this, but there's this church that's going to do a live crucifixion on Good Friday. And he's like, no way. He's like, yeah, way. I'm looking at their social media right now. No way.
Really? So, you're kidding me.
Well, that was basically what they thought. So they went and investigated it further. And it turns out they weren't actually going to do a live crucifixion. However, the marketing for it was so intense, and there were so many trigger warnings, like, if you faint at the sight of blood or whatever, there were so many trigger warnings that it made it sound like it was real, but it was just going to be a really, really intense passion play. But here's the thing. For a moment, they believed that an American evangelical church was going to actually do a crucifixion. And he's like,
right,
I got my big idea. And so from that point on, that's when the whole idea of satirizing that, basically, of a church looking for the next big thing. How are we going to top last Easter's? Pastor Skip says in the movie, I shot myself out of a cannon. I came in on a horse. I did all these things. How am I going to top it? A live crucifixion. So that's where that idea came from. And then the script went through many, many drafts since then. I bet that script went through probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 or more drafts.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. And then other writers were brought in, or was that kind of along the way?
Yeah, so Bob Sines was the second writer who was brought in. And then also Wes Hulula was already part of our team. Wes was brought on for other reasons, but as he and Thor went over the script, they decided they wanted to do some rewriting as well. So it was basically Thor, Bob, and Wes were the three writers on the movie.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Tell us about some more recent projects. I know you've continued to work. I've actually seen some of your shorts. I'm sure there's more than that that's going on. I've seen Lifeless, and I've seen, I don't remember the names, at a film festival last year, a couple of shorts that were reminiscent of Zoom meetings.
Yes. So I've been collaborating with screenwriter Darren Cogan for the past few years. And we actually have a feature that we're collaborating with Leland Clausen on that we're hoping to shoot next year. It's tentatively titled, because we don't know what the title is. So because Leland's got big hands, we just call it Big Hands Cabin. So that's been great collaborating with Leland. But Darren and I have been collaborating on shorts the past few years. They start out, the premiere entry is the 168 Film Project. The 168, you can do multiple categories. There's speed film competition, which is how they started out. But then as the years went on, they branched out into more. You can do unlimited documentary. You can do alumni entry. So returning producers can opt not to do a speed film, but have more time and do an alumni entry. And so the past few years that I've been working with Darren, we've been doing alumni entries. And 3 years in a row, we won Best Comedy at the 168, which was a really cool trifecta. But in 2021, we worked with Josh Mancuso, who has a great Instagram channel, a bunch of college sports type stuff. And funny enough, we're actually collaborating on a feature film with him as well, based on one of his fictional characters. But Josh Mancuso stars in something called Zoom Time, where he goes on a virtual date on this new app called Zoom Time. And let's just say there's time travel / parallel universes. And he encounters like 5 different versions of himself, meets his future daughter, et cetera, et cetera. So very fun short.
Yeah.
And then the next year, we worked with Erin Folan and Victoria Jackson on Birthday Brash. I think that's the other one you're thinking of.
Yeah.
And then this past year, we worked on Lifeless, a musical zomedy, which is just, man.
I tell you, I saw you promoting that, and
you're like, what is this?
I didn't know where it was going to go. I just had no idea, but it was, I'll say, surprisingly amazing. I'm not surprised that the work was amazing, of course.
But that the premise, like having no idea what it is. So here's sort of the nutshell. It's a faith-based musical comedy with singing zombies.
It is. And
so
it works.
when you tell that to people, they're like, how do I wrap my brain around that?
Is it available right now for people to watch? I don't remember from...
Only on an individual basis. So if you shoot me an email and you really want to see it, and you're not a judge at a festival.
Yeah.
Because it's currently going through the festival circuit.
Okay.
But yeah, if you really want to watch it, you can shoot me an email and I can send you a private link. You just can't share it publicly.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not only does the concept work, but again, unsurprisingly, it was very well done. The lead actor did a great job.
Erin Folan.
The singing was great. And even as a faith-based movie, the zombies work. It has purpose. It makes sense.
So check out this cast.
You got to watch it to understand why, but
so check out this cast. Erin Folan was our lead actor and also composer. And Darren Cogan, the screenwriter and executive producer, he not only wrote the script, he wrote the lyrics to the songs. And Erin put the music to the songs. So that combo of Darren and Erin, phenomenal.
Obviously.
I mean, were the tunes not playing in your head, or at least one of the tunes not playing in your head a little bit that day after you saw it? I mean, like, it's just really, really good stuff. So I can confidently say that not because of me, that short is brilliant because of the premise and the brainchild. You know, Darren's writing and Erin's musical and performing gravitas, just stellar. So you got Erin Folan, you got Victoria Jackson, you got Brad Stein, who, I mean, was that scene with Brad not incredible? Brad Stein played the psychiatrist.
Right.
Yeah, zombie psychiatrist, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, it's fun. and so we got Darby Capolino, who won Best Supporting Actress at the 168, and Josh Mancuso. We got to work with Josh in person this time because this was an on-location shoot. This wasn't virtual like Zoom time and Birthday Brash. So we actually got to meet and work with Josh in person for the first time, and that was a blast.
You know, I just noticed something I was thinking of earlier, because I know you want to talk about some projects that you are doing some crowdfunding for. But before we get into that, I know one of them is called Dogs on Duty, the Dog You series.
Yes.
I also noticed, let me think here. You like to use these plays on words in your titles because if you look at Birthday Brash,
well, I don't
makes sense.
For clarity's sake, I don't usually come up with the titles. But
is that right? Okay.
Yeah, no, that's usually the writer. Usually the writer comes up with the titles. Now, we may have some say in it, or you know, I may have some input here and there, but typically, depending on the project, the writer typically comes up with a title.
Well, I don't have them in front of me right now, but I know I've read at least 3 titles that you've produced or directed that have, I guess, a musical zomedy. That's another one. You've got that combination of words that's unique and it stands out. But at least 3 of your titles that do that.
Yeah, there's a short film I did with the late Gary Emmerich back in 2011 called One Night Stand. And obviously that has a certain connotation to it. There is a lady of the night in it. However, it is a comedy/drama about the sobering sin of adultery. And Thor stars in that one. That one you can see on YouTube on Crown Entertainment's channel. It's called One Night Stand. So that has a double meaning because it's actually, the story is about how the Bible in the nightstand radically changed this traveling businessman who's a cheater, changes his heart while he's waiting for the lady of the night to come over. So very poignant comedy with that one. And then the other one you're probably trying to think of is one called Open Mic, which is a faith-based sitcom. The lead character is Mike. And so Open Mic, double meaning with M-I-C and M-I-K-E. Skip Listening is another one. Skip Listening is about a narcissistic radio DJ who loses his hearing. So he's a talk jock who loses his hearing in a freak, ridiculous accident. His name is Skip, and he used to skip listening, but as a result of losing his hearing, he had to learn how to hear. So yeah, I do enjoy the double meanings.
Yeah. I got a question.
I might have an answer.
I'm almost sure you will.
Okay.
People who want to help, people who want to encourage and help independent filmmakers move ahead, how can they help?
If you genuinely like the content, purchase the content and share the content. For example, a lot of Christians don't even know the movie Church People exists, let alone have seen it. The vast majority of Christians don't even know it exists. We did not have a large marketing budget. So if you enjoyed Church People, please tell your family, friends, enemies, Postal Man. I mean, tell everybody to check it out. And there's lots of ways they can do that. Just type in Church People online and you'll find it very easily. Or just go to churchpeoplefilm.com. But yeah, I mean, like, if you like what the Kendrick brothers are doing, if you like what the Irwin brothers are doing, if you like what whoever your favorite filmmakers are in the faith-based world, especially, consume the content, purchase the content, and share, because that communicates to people who can fund projects, which unfortunately I'm not there yet. If I was there and able to do it, I'd be funding my own projects and other people's projects. Not there yet. But that communicates to the people with the money that, oh, there's an audience for this. I mean, like when The Passion of the Christ slayed the box office in 2004, that was a ginormous light bulb moment for investors to go, oh, okay, there's an audience here for that, right? And and since then, faith-based films have certainly, the more independent faith-based films and up-and-comers and so forth have gotten better and better and better. So there's definitely an audience for it, but if you don't let the money people know there's an audience for it by your purchase and your sharing of the content and you rallying behind it, they don't know.
That's right. Yeah. So take a proactive approach to it.
Yeah. Don't just sit back and go, I wish they'd do more faith-based stuff.
You can help.
Well, you can help. You can buy it. You can share it. And if there's crowdfunding campaigns and there are people who you like or you like the project, support it. I mean, you'd be surprised at how far 5 or 10 or 15 or $25 goes. Because if there's 2,000 of you giving 5 or 10 or 15 or $25, that adds up really quick.
Yeah.
And movies are not cheap to make. Even nowadays, I mean, they're a lot cheaper than they used to be back 20, 30 years ago, but they're still not cheap to make because it takes a village to make a movie.
So tell us, I know you have some crowdfunding campaigns right now. Tell us about them.
Sure. There's 3 projects right now that have live crowdfunding campaigns. The one you mentioned is Dogs on Duty, the Dog series. And we're in post-production on that. So we're raising post-production funds for the first season. And the first season is highlighting legitimate service dogs, not the fake service dogs, like legit service dogs. We actually have an episode about fake service dogs, which it's flabbergasting. When you see this episode, it's flabbergasting because, I don't want to give anybody ideas, but you can buy fake service dog vests online. And people slap them on and just so they can get their pet in somewhere that the pet doesn't belong. Season 1 highlights the service dogs that literally help save the lives of insulin-dependent type 2 diabetics. So there's that one. And then there's another live crowdfunding campaign that we're raising development funds for so that we can tap a writer to write the screenplay based off of a book called Like Daddy Used to Say. And that's based on the true story of Nikki Rowe Cross, who was actually trafficked as a teenager back in the 70s in Akron, Ohio, by her boyfriend and his mom. She grew up on a farm and she met this guy. She was a teenager. She basically left home as a teenager with him. He took her to his mom's in Ohio and they held her captive in the attic with other victims for approximately a year. And so basically this movie is the miraculous story of how God rescued her from that back in the 70s in Akron, Ohio. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
I mean, it could literally be happening in your backyard and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
And then the other one is a faith-based sitcom called Open Mic. There's the other double meaning. The lead character, like I said, is Mike, and he's a comedian. He's on his way to his big break gig in LA, and he gets waylaid in deep East Texas.
Okay.
And so it's a faith-based sitcom, and we're raising funds right now for that one to shoot the pilot episode. We're hoping to shoot that this year.
Cool.
2 of those projects you can find on MovieBank. If you go to moviebank.tv and just search Open Mic or search Dogs on Duty, the Doggy series, those 2 projects you can find there. The other project you can find on GiveSendGo, givesendgo.com, and it's called Like Daddy Used to Say.
Okay.
And again, that's for the development funds to write the script.
Yeah, I know you did already send me some links for us to put in the show notes. I'm not sure if those were part of that. Let's take a look and send them to me so we'll get them in there and people can find it easily.
Yep.
Cool. Well, when we move into the second portion, our members episode, I would like to talk more about crowdfunding. It sounds like you've got some experience with it. You've done this a bit. And of course, while we like to hear your experiences, where you came from, how you got where you are, in our podcast, we also like to, as much as possible, give some tips, give some advice, help other filmmakers along the way. And so that's one of the things I'd like to talk about in the second half.
Great.
Your experience with crowdfunding. Before we finish up this portion of our interview, I'd like to invite you to go deeper in our discussion with Christopher Shawn Shaw in Part 2, our exclusive members episode. It's full of practical career-building advice. Learn strategies for making a crowdfunding campaign successful. Get vital tips on effectively leveraging social media and in-person networking. Hear an inspiring story about how a tweet raised the awareness for church people, increased the available budget, and got it made. You can hear Christopher's bonus episode and our complete catalog of exclusive episodes by becoming a supporting member. $5 a month helps support the production of this podcast and doubles the inspiring content you receive every week. Sign up now and get the first month free. You can find the link in the show notes or simply go to faffpodcast.com/support. Tell us how you go about connecting with people. How do you get your work in front of people?
Social media is huge, huge. So what I've been doing for years, and it seems to work pretty well, is when I connect with somebody like a Facebook friend or a new connection on LinkedIn or whatever the platform is, there's a cool platform that is kind of similar to LinkedIn. It's called alignable.com. And I get about as much of a response rate there as I do on LinkedIn, maybe a little less, but it's still, there's some stuff happening on Alignable. But basically, when I have a new connection, I have in mind what I want to present. I mean, like, so what if you have 5,000 connections, or like on LinkedIn, I have over 22,000 connections, I think. What good is that if you're not engaging with them?
Absolutely.
So I like to connect. And then if I have a project I want them to see something about. So like right now, the big one for me is church people, because it is a feature and it is a comedy, and that's my niche. And it tends to get, I mean, I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it does tend to get favorable responses. People generally tend to really like that one. And the trailer, like I said, is just slamming. Like Scott Edge knocked that trailer out of the park along with Collide Media Group.
I got to watch it again now.
So what I do right now is, like, if I connect on LinkedIn, let's say the missing person in this podcast connects with me on LinkedIn. So God bless you, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for connecting with me here on LinkedIn. Have you seen the trailer for my redemptive comedy, faith-based directorial debut? And then I put the link to the trailer, and then I asked the question, what do you think? Now, be prepared when you ask that question that somebody might not like it, and some people are bold enough to tell you, yeah, it's not my cup of tea. And that has happened. But by and large, when I get a response to that, and they hadn't heard of it, and most of the time they haven't heard of the movie, goes back to the marketing thing. A lot of people don't even know the movie exists, especially Christians. And usually the response is very favorable. And then you gauge your response from there. So for example, if you're an actor and, you are connecting with people, you're connecting with filmmakers or something on different social media platforms, obviously you got to be careful. There are some shysters out there, but you can have a similar approach. Hey, thanks so much for connecting here. What do you think of my latest acting reel? Love to hear your thoughts. Put the ball in their court. I would say about half the time is my experience, maybe a little less, but about half the time they will respond. And if it's quality work and it connects with them, they'll respond favorably. And now you just got your work in front of somebody who may not have known your work existed before.
Right.
And I like to say, it sounds so simple, but it's so true. People don't know you exist if they don't know you exist. And people don't know your work if they don't know your work. So how are they going to see your work?
And if you're not going to promote it, who is?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unless you're in like a blockbuster Marvel movie or something, and it's just all over the place because they have the hundreds of millions of dollars to market it, and your face is now plastered on billboards in New York City and whatnot. Okay, great. That's not 99 point whatever % of the aspiring actors and filmmakers and so forth out there. So how are you going to do it? And social media has been a huge tool that the Lord has used in my career.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that insight. Christopher, tell us where you'd like people to find your material. Where can they find your shows, your movies, and your crowdfunding campaigns?
Thank you so much for asking. So my website is ChristopherShawnShaw.com. That's spelled Christopher, ShawnShaw.com.
Mm-hmm.
The Church People website is churchpeoplefilm.com. And as far as the crowdfunding campaigns go, if you go to moviebank.tv and in the search field there, search open mic, that's one project. The second one you can search on moviebank.tv is Dogs on Duty, the Dog U series. And then on a different platform, givesendgo.com, you can search Like Daddy Used to Say.
Thank you so much for your time today, Christopher Shawn Shaw. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure people have enjoyed getting to hear some of your story and about some of your projects and those tips. We will be talking soon in our second portion of the interview, our members portion, and I look forward to talking with you more.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here. You have a great podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. God bless.
God bless you too.
Thanks for listening to the Faith and Family Filmmakers podcast. If you would like email reminders about newly released episodes and more, please sign up at faffpodcast.com/email. That's faffpodcast.com/email. Bringing filmmakers together for faith and family.
That's a wrap.